Hi, this is George Gillis, and this is Distressed to De-Stressed in 3 minutes or less. So let me welcome you to the webinar. Thanks for being here today. I know that your time is valuable, and I really appreciate you spending some time to look into this. And my goal is to be able to stay on point and deliver usable, practical information that you can apply immediately to start to better handle stress. So who am I and why should you listen to me? Let me give you a quick background. I started selling in 1977 with Cutco Cutlery when I was a student at Drexel University in Philadelphia. I stayed with them, by the way, for 17 years. I did some consulting in the Philadelphia area in the early 90s and sales training. And I was hired by one of my clients to be a sales manager in a promotional products industry. In 1998, I decided I wanted to make a change. I moved to Scottsdale to get into the field of integrative healthcare, and I became a licensed massage therapist because I saw that as one of the quickest ways into that industry, and quickly became an instructor at 2 nationally accredited schools. I developed an interest in hypnotherapy and neurolinguistic programming. Got my master's certification in both of those and a few other things in 2003. And I've had a private practice in Scottsdale for quite a few years doing seminars, workshops, keynotes, things like that. In 2005, I discovered Colby Corporation, which is a Phoenix-based company. You'll be learning more about that. And you'll also learn about Poet, a protocol that I put together to help people consciously train their subconscious mind so they can find more of what they want, less of what they don't. And Distressed to De-Stressed in 3 minutes or less is a compilation of all of this knowledge, plus some intake from martial arts and a few other sources as well. So what's the big deal about stress? If you take a look at this chart on the left, I mean, holy smokes, heart disease, colitis, depression, allergies, overeating, asthma, kidney disorders, all kinds of things. Bureau of National Affairs, 40% of job turnover due to stress, $300 billion in annual impact, 16 days estimated of sick leave in the business world. So we all have stress. It comes from lots of different directions. Could be finances, could be health, could be family. You might be dealing with kids, you might be dealing with elderly parents. 2 of the big causes are relationships and career, and we'll be getting into great detail in both of those. So what makes this workshop, what makes this webinar different? There's a basic premise, and that is that you can't manage stress. You can only manage yourself and your responses to stress. It's the same thing really as time management workshops. You can't really control and direct or exert any kind of influence on time. A second is a second. There's 60 in a minute. There's 60 minutes in an hour. That's just the way it is. The only thing that you can control is yourself. Same thing with stress management workshops. You go to the workshop and then on your way home, somebody cuts you off on the highway and you feel stress again. You go into the office the next day and there's deadlines and, irate bosses and clients that want more than you can deliver. So it all comes down to managing yourself. And that's a fundamental premise of this program. It's all about how you manage yourself and your responses as opposed to reacting to stress. Learn to respond. And the very fundamental difference, by the way, between reacting and responding, the difference really is in training and education. If there's a fire or if there's an emergency, police and firefighters are the first ones to run in. Everybody else is running away. The difference between running in and running away is training. And it's no accident that these people are called first responders, not first reactors. So it's all about you. What we're not going to cover is some of the stuff that you already heard. Eat well, exercise, be grateful, laugh more. I actually heard a nationally syndicated radio talk show host giving advice to a guy who was calling in because he was stressed to stop whatever he was doing and do 20 push-ups. Now, how are you going to do that in rush hour traffic? I have no idea. How that's going to work in a sales call or in a board meeting, it's ridiculous. So another one of the premises of this program is the stress is happening between your own ears. The solution should be between your own ears. Nobody needs to know what's going on. So I know a little bit about stress. I'm sure you do too. And this picture of the eyebrows furrowed is what I used to look like for a lot of years, actually. And when I left here in 1998 left Philadelphia to come to Scottsdale, that's what it looked like. My eyebrows were constantly crunched together, and it looked like I was angry all the time. I was eating Tums like they were candy. once I learned some of the techniques that I'm going to be sharing with you today, I heard people say, instead of "you have a lot of anger," they started saying, "You look different. Are you doing yoga or something?" And the difference was I learned how to better manage myself and respond as opposed to react. Now, I also have a personal pet peeve that I'd like to share with you and a promise. We've all seen this guy at workshops. They stand up in the front of the room or on the stage, and they talk about all the things that you need to learn and all the things that you have to do, but never get around to telling you how, because they want you to buy the product that they have in the back of the room, or they want to upsell you to their weekend seminar or week-long program or whatever it might be. And or sometimes they flat out just don't know how to. They'd rather just stand up there and be, talking heads and tell you what you need to do. So everything I'm teaching today is stuff that I've used myself and still do use and have used with clients for over a decade, without exceptions. So I know that it works. Now, I'd also like you to think about this carefully. This material might not be for you if you're looking for a miracle fix to fix everything that's going on. That doesn't exist. There is no panacea. If you want the information but you aren't willing to apply it, there's a misnomer out there that says knowledge is power. That's not accurate. The application of knowledge is power. You can have all the knowledge that's possible, but if you don't use it, if you don't apply it, it's absolutely meaningless. So you need to be willing to take some of this information and actually use it. And it's not for you if you expect to master the material in 3 minutes. These programs and strategies work in a couple minutes, but it might take you a little bit longer to actually master them. So what will we be covering today specifically? We're going to get into a definition of stress. I'm going to give you 5 strategies, actually, not just 4, that you can implement right away to better deal with stress. And we're going to talk about how to identify and accurately, without any bias and in a scientific way, identify potential stressors in your life. And more importantly, we'll talk about what you can do about it. Now, I want you also just to be able to sit back and relax. You're going to receive PDF information with all the strategies that we were talking about here. As a matter of fact, you may have already downloaded that. So all the how-to stuff is going to be available for you. So if you want to take some general notes, that's fine, or else just sit back and enjoy the material as it comes to you. So what is stress? I love this definition from Hans Seeley. The nonspecific response of the body to any demand, you can read this, alarm reaction, resistance during which increased defenses, disease or death. It's called the general adaptation syndrome. Pretty scary, frightening kind of a definition. The one I like better, it's a little bit more fun. I wish I could find the source, but it's only listed as anonymous. The overwhelming feeling of strain, conflict, and confusion that arises when the brain has to override the body's desire to choke the living crap out of some fool who deserves it. That's the kind of stress, I think you'll agree, that we all feel, pretty much on a daily basis. So when we go into stress, your body has a hard-wired response called the fight or flight response, and you're probably familiar, I'm sure you've heard of this before. But some of the physiological effects of fight or flight: heart rate increase, blood pressure increase, respiration, vessels constrict, adrenaline, testosterone, norepinephrine, all kinds of chemicals flow through your body to anesthetize you, to help your blood clot more quickly, to help you deal with pain. You get tunnel vision. All your systems shut down because the blood is going out to the muscles. It's a pretty intense response, and it is hardwired in all of us for preservation of the species. And what I'd like to do for this program is focus on 2 specific responses in fight or flight. That is respiration rate increases and tunnel vision. And the question that I'd like you to ponder is, what would happen if you could intentionally alter both of these? You see, you can't really intentionally change the direction of where your blood is flowing and force it into your internal organs. You can't intentionally excrete different hormones like testosterone and adrenaline and norepinephrine and cortisol into your system. Not intentionally, but you can consciously and intentionally focus on respiration and tunnel vision. So strategy number 1 deals with respiration, deep abdominal breathing. I got to tell you, the first time I ever heard this, I thought it was kind of silly. You don't breathe into your belly, but actually we do. When we're relaxed, our belly is going up and down. Watch a baby breathe. Their belly is going up and down. Watch your mate breathe while they're sleeping. Their belly is going up and down. We breathe shallow into the top of our chest, a lot of times just during the day, out of bad habit. So without getting into all the details of this, again, because you have the how-to on how to do abdominal breathing, look at the math. Tidal breathing, which is what we do on a daily basis, you get about 500 milliliters of air about 15 times per minute. But abdominal breathing, because it's so deep and so slow, you're only going to breathe about half as much, but you bring in about 4 times the amount of oxygen and air into your system. So what does that do to your heart rate and your blood pressure? What does that do to the clarity of your thinking? What does that do to your ability to problem solve when more oxygen is going to your brain? Think about that. Now, don't tell me that you don't have time to practice this. I actually had a client years ago who sat in my chair, looked me square in the eyes, and said, I don't have time to practice abdominal breathing. And I just let that hang there for a moment for dramatic effect, because really, no time to practice. And I told him, said, the only time that you can't practice breathing is when it's way too late for hypnotherapy or NLP or anything else. I mean, you inhale and exhale on average 20,000 times a day. This does not take long to get into muscle memory. So learn and practice deep abdominal breathing. It'll make a huge difference in your ability to effectively respond to stress. Strategy number 2 is so simple, but it's posture. I mean, just look at the x-ray, think about abdominal breathing, look how compressed the rib cage is and how hunched over this person is. Think about how often you find yourself sitting like that, and then ask yourself, how could I possibly do deep abdominal breathing and get the proper amount of oxygen to my body if my body is slumped over like that? Pretty simple. And think about, too, how important is posture to your assessment of somebody else? I mean, we pick up on this nonverbal signal, and we have a feeling for what the mood of another person is. You know, what does depressed posture look like? What does angry posture look like? What's the difference between someone who's confident or arrogant? How are they standing? So posture is key. When you're sitting properly, there should be a curvature in your spine. You should be sitting on what are called the sits bones. Your shoulders should be back. There should be a straight line when you're standing between your ear, your shoulders, your hips, and your ankles. So if you're not sure about this, go get some help. Talk to a massage therapist or a chiropractor. But work on your posture, because it has a huge impact on your ability to deal with stress. Now, many, many years ago, William James, one of the founders of American psychology, wrote this: we do not sing because we're happy because we sing. We do not sing because we're happy because we sing. Bottom line is feelings follow actions. If you are putting your body in a position of not being able to respond to stress, if you're curled up, if you're closed up, if your shoulders are rolled in and you're getting very defensive, it's very difficult for your mind to focus on relaxation. If, however, your body is relaxed and upright, it's much more easy for your mind to follow. Your mind and body are connected. You can lead the cycle with your mind, you can lead the cycle with your body, but one will follow the other. We don't sing because we're happy because we sing. Feelings follow actions. Strategy number 3, peripheral vision. Let me back up for a moment here. So if you think about the fight or flight response and abdominal breathing versus very shallow tidal breathing, when you change your breathing to deep abdominal breathing, you start to override the fight or flight response. That's the simple bottom line to it. This is something that anybody in the military knows. Snipers know this really, really well. They breathe very, very slowly so they can control everything that's happening. So practice these 2 things. It will not take you long, I promise. Let's move ahead. Strategy number 3, peripheral vision. This is one of the most profound things I've ever learned. First time I ever learned it, I thought it was really kind of cool. And then after doing it for many, many years, I realized this is really important. The peripheral vision refers to the field of vision off to your left and to your right. As you're staring straight ahead at a fixed point, how much can you see off to the left and right? And a lot of times it's not necessarily seeing as much of it is as an awareness of movement or awareness of shapes and colors off to the left and to the right. So here's the basics of peripheral vision. Find a spot on the wall or the ceiling so that your eyes are straight ahead and upward at a slight angle. Ideally, the spot should be maybe 8 to 10 feet away, so it's not, real close. And you don't want your eyes going up at a high angle. You want them up at a little bit of an angle, because if they roll up too high, you're going to get a headache, okay? And you could put a Post-it note with a big black dot on it on your wall. I've had many, many clients do that so they can have a fixed spot that they can focus on. Step number 3, simply stare at the spot. Number 4, let your eyes blink so that they're comfortable. Whether you want to blink rapidly or slowly, however you need to blink so that your eyes are comfortable, keep staring at the spot. What you'll begin to notice is your peripheral vision starting to widen up. Keep your eyes focused on the spot, but start to be aware of the field of vision expanding to your left and the right. And then you'll start to notice a feeling of relaxation, usually in your shoulders or in your jaw, where everything sort of feels like it's starting to relax a little bit. When that starts to happen, move your awareness into the periphery. And what I mean by that is just start to really be aware of how much you can see off to your left and right. Let your eyes softly focus on the spot. Just be aware of that. Some people have a sensory awareness of the space behind their head. Some people say that they can hear more, almost like in 360 degrees. So just start to be aware of the periphery. And then notice shortly after that how your thoughts have slowed down and or stopped completely. Now, the first few times you do this, you're going to feel kind of spacey, you're going to feel kind of flighty, and that's normal. By the way, what you're actually doing here is going into a very mild and very light hypnotic trance. It's a singular focus on one thing to the exclusion of all other things. So you're going into a little bit of a trance, but you're opening up your mind. You're changing the way your brain is processing incoming data. Deep abdominal breathing overrides shallow breathing that we get into fight or flight. Peripheral vision overrides tunnel vision that we go into when we go into fight or flight. That's the purpose of learning how to do this. With practice, you can hold the feeling and then bring your attention back down to the things that you do on a regular basis. Now, one of the benefits of peripheral vision is that you're able to get past the stuff that's holding you back consciously. You're able to recall things much more easily that you already know. To give you an example, when I was teaching massage therapists, one of the classes that we taught was a 40-hour class. We would move the client into about 50 different positions. It's a passive movement, so we'd position their arms, their legs, their hips, their neck in all different positions. So it was complex. There was a lot to this particular protocol. On the last day of class, I told the students they had 2 minutes to move their person through all the different positions. Now, they knew about this in advance, but they thought I was kidding, I think. So on the last day of class, they would come in and kind of be panicked that they had to do this. And I gave them a quick demo, a 30-second demo of what it should look like, picked up my watch, and basically said, go. And they were mad. Okay, most of them stopped at about a minute and a half, minute and 45 seconds in, just really frustrated and pretty much perturbed at me. I had at the same time Post-it notes with black spots up on the wall in various spots, and I asked them to pick a spot and just stare at the spot. I walked them through a 3-minute exercise on peripheral vision, asked them to hold on to the feeling that they had, go back to the person who was on the table, and go again, ready, set, go. And we had 85% success rate of the people doing this entire protocol in 2 minutes or less. And we never took more than 2.5 minutes after doing this many, many times. Now, why? What was the difference? The first time through, they were in their conscious head. They were thinking really hard. The second time through, their conscious mind had a break. Their conscious mind basically shut down, and everything that they knew was able to come out and flow very, very simply. That was the difference. So when you're going into a sales presentation, or you're going into a meeting, go into peripheral vision. It's amazing how much more access you have to all the information that you already know and how you can maintain in a calm state during times of pressure. Like I said, very simple, but one of the most profound things I've ever learned. Okay, strategy number 4, Zoom. Now, I know the name is kind of silly, and once we walk through this and you understand what the protocol is all about, you'll understand why we call it Zoom. Here's what you use it for. You can use it for literally moving negative thoughts out of your mind very, very quickly. You can change your emotional state from being charged, from being upset or mad or angry or sad or whatever it might be, to a neutral state so that you can shift into a problem-solving mode. Would it be fair to say that if you're emotionally charged, it's hard to solve problems, but when you're emotionally calm or you're emotionally neutral, it's much easier to come up with solutions? That's what Zoom will do for you. You can enhance your own energy level because you can get rid of all this negative energy very, very quickly. So don't ignore this because of its simplicity. And I love this quote from Albert Einstein. It says, "Any intelligent fool can make things bigger, more complex. It takes a touch of genius to move in the opposite direction." And Zoom is really simple. So here's the thinking behind it. If you look at the way our minds work, we have thoughts, then images, and emotions. Thoughts are very quick electrical impulses. You hold the thought long enough and an image forms in our head. Hold the image long enough and an emotion follows. The emotion that's appropriate to that image is created and secreted by your brain. The thing that's important here is that when we have the emotion, once we have the feeling, we're talking about chemistry, not just electrical impulses, because every emotion that we feel is a result of chemicals that are produced by your brain and flooded through your body. Okay? The science behind this is called psychoneuroimmunology. If you want to read a couple great books on it, Deep Healing by Emmett Miller, MD, and Molecules of Emotion by Candace Pert, PhD. This is hard science. This isn't foo-foo stuff. This is the real deal. Okay? Trust me on that one. So when we feel feelings, we're dealing with chemistry. And because chemistry is flowing through our body, it takes longer for those feelings to subside. Thoughts, electrical impulses in and out, that's why you can have a thought and forget it by the time you go to sit down to write it. Okay, hold the thought long enough, image long enough, you get to an emotion. So graphically, it might look like this. We have a thought, we hold that long enough, it creates an image. We hold that long enough, creates an emotion. And there's a window of opportunity in here to change and interrupt this pattern, to interrupt this sequence. Now, what most people do when they have a negative thought, and a negative thought could be anything like, oh, I don't know about if I can make this sale. I don't know about this meeting. I don't know if I'm good enough to do this. Whatever that negative thought is, what most of us have learned to do is think about this. Oh, don't think about it. Don't worry about it. Don't let them get to you. It doesn't do any good to be upset. Don't blow this sales call. You've probably had these said to yourself. You've probably said them to others with all good intention. Question is, how's that been working for you so far? Because if we change the paradigm, if we change how we're thinking, and we talk in terms of thoughts and image and emotions, what happens if we do something different? What happens if we interrupt the pattern and change the image, rather than trying to override it by not thinking about it? Because we all know the harder you try not to think about something, that's right, the more you think about it. So Zoom is experiential and it's very, very simple. And again, you have all the detailed instructions on how to do this. It's so simple. As a matter of fact, you can master this one in really just in minutes. So let's quickly walk through the process. When you have a negative thought in your mind, what I'd like you to do is allow yourself to just close your eyes and let the picture form, whether it's a person, a place, a thing, or event. Let the picture form in your head. Then, now that right there, by the way, might be a revelation for you that you even create a picture in your mind, and we do. Now, the second part of this is even more fun. I want you to notice the details of the picture. Is it color or is it black and white? Is it framed or is it all around you? Are you looking through your own eyes as if you're right there, or do you see yourself in the picture as if you're looking at it on a movie screen or on a TV? Is the picture moving or is it still? Is it distant or is it near? Is it clear or is it fuzzy? In the screen of your imagination, quantify those things and see what you come up with. Then, one step at a time, change the picture so that it becomes still instead of moving. Because usually the most emotionally charged pictures are moving and they're color, and we're looking through our own eyes. Those are the big drivers. So change it so it becomes still. Change it so it becomes black and white. Change it so you can see yourself in the picture. Sort of step out of it and let yourself see yourself in that picture, in that event, talking to that person, whatever it might be. Then use your imagination and make it the size of an 8x10 black and white photo held out at arm's length. You can do this. It's simply using your imagination. And notice when you do that, the decrease in the feelings, the decrease in the emotional charge. Now here's the deal. When you start to get control of the picture, you start to realize that you have control of it. It does not influence you. You have control of it. It does not have control of you. After all, it's your mind, it's your picture. You should be the one who's controlling it. So when you shrink it down to an 8x10 photograph, black and white at arm's length, you'll notice a decrease in the feelings. Let's do a little bit more. Let's shrink it down to the size of a postage stamp, about the size of your thumbnail, and imagine that postage stamp just flies off your hand and attaches itself to the farthest wall in the room where you are, or in the building across the street. Just zoom it all the way out and let it stay there. Once it's stuck up there, open up your eyes, think about this person, place, thing, or event, and notice what the feelings are now. And you'll notice, if they're not completely gone, they have dissipated dramatically. Now, If you're doing this with something that's really recent, something that's intense, you might have to do this exercise 3, 4, 5 times. You do it in rapid succession. Just shrink it down, zoom it out, shrink it down, zoom it out, zoom it out, zoom it out. And each time you do that, you're going to notice the emotions start to ratchet down. That's the idea behind it. And to make this sort of graphic for you, if you take a look at this picture of the seal and the great white, you know, it's an emotionally charged picture for some people. I mean, hey, look, you know, great whites have to eat too. But if we change this picture and we zoom it all the way out and make it small, dark, like a little gray rectangle, your mind cannot code that tiny little rectangle the way it codes here, this big picture of the shark. Zoom it out and change it. You change the picture, you literally change the way your mind codes it. When you start out with a picture in your mind of a person who's bothering you, and you close your eyes and they're standing in front of you, face to face, and their mouth is moving, and it's color, and it's all around you, your brain is going to code that event one way. When you change that picture to have yourself black and white photograph as if you're looking at the event and holding it out, and then you shrink it down and then you zoom it away, when your brain cannot code that event, just like it can't code the little gray box of the great white eating the seal. Okay. By the way, I understand when I found this picture, it was captioned that, yes, the seal did get away, and I hope that makes you feel better. Okay. So literally zoom away negative thoughts. That's where the name comes from. But now, this is important. This will not solve the problem, okay? This doesn't solve your problem. If you got something going on with somebody, or you have a challenge at work or whatever it might be, this doesn't solve it. What this does is it puts you in a different state of mind, one that's conducive to problem solving, makes you neutral as opposed to charged. So change the picture, you change the meaning in your mind. It is that simple. Make this fun, okay? Some clients that I've worked with, what they've done is they've taken the picture and they sort of, in their imagination, crammed it into a box, because by putting it into a box in their mind, they're now putting a boundary around that. Put a lid on the box, tape the box shut, do whatever you want with it, okay? Some people have blown it up. Some people have shot it out into the sun or thrown it into deep space, had a beetle eat it. If you can start out stressed and you end up smiling, what's the problem, okay? I had one client who was a fan of the Pixar movie Monsters, Inc. So she had the box with the picture inside of it incinerated, and then the team from Monsters, Inc. would come along and clean it up and take it away. And look, if you can start out stressed, but you end up smiling, where's the problem? And let me ask you, in which mental state are you going to be most prepared to find a good solution? When you're stressed or when you're smiling? So yes, it's simple. Yes, it's goofy. Yes, it has a funny name. And yes, it really does work. Your unconscious mind is about 7 years old emotionally. So have fun with this. The more ridiculous you can make it, the better it will be for you. Strategy number 5, poet. This is a protocol that I created several years ago, and we're going to share the basics with you now. So let's get into your head a little bit. You're going through your day, and you're feeling pretty good, and then something happens, and boom, your mood slips down. You might be getting into angry or sad or guilt or whatever the feeling is. You know what I'm talking about. You're starting out good, and somehow something happens, and in an instant, your mood just slides down, and you're in the pits. And this happens on a regular basis. Now, I've been using the term conscious and unconscious mind throughout the course of this program. So let me give you a real quick definition. By the way, I use unconscious and subconscious interchangeably, so as not to confuse you. Simple definition: the conscious mind is the part of you that you're aware of right now. Everything else is unconscious. Your unconscious mind runs your heart. Your unconscious mind breathes you. Your unconscious mind is running every system in your body. Your unconscious mind stores all your memories. Your unconscious mind creates these filters that information comes in and directs your behavior. So the unconscious mind, like the iceberg, is the bigger portion of who you are. Poet is a technique that will help you train your brain. It's a technique that will help you consciously train your subconscious mind, consciously train your unconscious mind, so you can have control over that part of your mind of which you are not necessarily aware. The model that this is based on comes from neurolinguistic programming. And it's a very simple model that we have external event happens. You know, you see, hear, taste, smell, something happens externally. But it's the internal representation that we give that event that creates the meaning that we have. Let me give you my favorite example. Years ago, Client, actually, she never became a client, but she told me this story. She was in her car. She was driving. Her boyfriend was next to her. They were driving down one of the highways here in Phoenix. Car pulls up next to him. The car was full of some high school kids. The kids moon this person and her boyfriend and then speed off down an exit ramp. Her reaction was to laugh hysterically. His reaction was to actually reach for the steering wheel and start to pull her off to the off-ramp because he wanted to catch up with these kids and beat the crap out of each one of them. So here we are, two people, same time and space, same external event. What's the difference in the behavior? It's what's going on between their own ears. It's a combination of your memories, your emotions, how you delete and distort and generalize the information. It's your physical state. It's your physiology. That creates the internal representation. That's what we respond to. So POET is a tool that will help you change that internal representation. So here's some common thoughts of what people have when things aren't going well. Why is this happening now? I always love that question. Why is this happening now? You hear this on the news all the time. It fascinates me. Well, why now, Bob? Well, because if it happened 2 hours from now or 2 days ago, you'd be asking the same darn question. Why now? Because now is all we have. But this is a question that we ask ourselves. What did I do to deserve this? Why does this always happen to me? What's wrong with me? Why am I so stupid? When will I learn? When will this stop? Or the very simple and popular WTF. Okay? Now, if you think about all these questions, you'll notice they're all problem-oriented and they're focused on the past. They're problem-oriented, focused on the past. This is part of the problem. The question is, what is your unconscious mind focused on? Are you focused on the problem or are you focused on the opportunities? POET is a tool that will help you change your focus consciously so that your unconscious mind will gather more information of the kind that you want. The process of POET is very, very simple. It's only 4 steps. Pause, observe, examine, engage, and thank. So let's take them one at a time. P of POET is pause. The purpose here is to interrupt the pattern. The purpose is to get your attention that something is going on. When you feel yourself starting to slip into the pits, you need to come up with something that you can say to yourself that's very simple, very fast, very short. Now, other people that are in my world advocate things like, slapping your wrist or putting a rubber band on your wrist and snapping it. Again, how's that going to work in the middle of a sales call or in the middle of a business meeting? Okay, so let's deal with stuff that's happening all between your own ears that you can do without anyone else being aware. Find a word that you like that you can use that will instantly get your attention. For me, it's the first one. I'd simply say, huh. It's short, it's fast, it's replicable. That's pause, very simple. The O part of pause is observe, okay? This time the words matter. What I want you to do is change the question that you start to ask yourself instead of why does this always happen to one of these 2 options, 5 words and 5 words only. How do I do this or how do I do that? The this or the that refers to the feeling that you're feeling. There is no reason that's good for you to say to yourself, why am I feeling this way, like I'm a loser, why I can't get anything done, why every time I try to do something it fails. The more that you say stuff like that, the more that your brain is going through all the data of your experiences and connecting more neurons and making that image even more clear. So when that image gets enhanced, you know what happens. You start to feel more feelings. The deeper you are in the feelings, the harder it is to pull yourself out. So from now on, make yourself a promise that when you start slipping into the pits, you simply refer to it as how do I do this or how do I do that? Those are your choice. If you want this to work, it's got to be those 5 words. You got room for wiggle room on all the rest of the protocol. But for this to work, you got to use those 5 words. How do I do this or how do I do that? Fair enough? The question of how do I do this or how do I do that, by the way, causes confusion. If you say that to yourself now, there's going to be a part of your mind that's going to sort of be going, huh? What? And confusion is exactly what we want. We want confusion because the old system, the old strategy that you've been using, there was no confusion. You get into the same rut of questioning yourself and feeling worse. This interrupts it. When you say to yourself, huh, how do I do that? It creates confusion because you've never asked that of yourself before. If you do it right now, my guess is you're going to feel a little bit weird, a little bit confused. This is why confusion is important. Confusion always precedes understanding. Confusion opens up the door. Confusion opens up the gate between your conscious and unconscious mind. It gives a pause to that slide, and enables us to put in the proper instructions, which is the next step, and that's the E. Okay, so let's just review. How do I do this? How do I do that? Not why. How questions the process. How stimulates curiosity. So question the process, create confusion. The E part of POET is examine and engage. Now, rather than questions that are based in the past and negative, these are questions that are based in the future, and they're positive, solution-oriented questions. Questions like this: what can I learn from this that will make me a better person? What can I get from this so that next time I can handle it better? What's the lesson that will allow me to laugh at this experience in the future? Aren't those nicer questions to ask of yourself? What can I learn from this so that I can avoid it entirely next time it comes up? You see, your unconscious mind is going to search for the answer. Your unconscious mind is going to solve the puzzle. Okay? Think back for a moment now. In times in the past, maybe in high school, or maybe even recently, when you were trying to remember something and you couldn't. And the harder you try to remember it, what happens? The further away it seems to get, okay? And I remember times in high school with chemistry or physics problems, I'd be looking at it, could not get it. I'd wake up the next morning, look at the book, and there was the answer clear as a bell, because all night long, my unconscious mind was going through and solving the problem. So what we're saying here is, rather than asking yourself, why does this always happen to me? Ask yourself, what can I learn from this so that next time it comes up, I can handle it better? Give yourself instructions that are solution-oriented and positive and future-based. I hope that makes sense. So we've got a process now that basically says, how do I do that? What can I learn from this that'll help me do better in the future? The next part is the hardest part of POET, and that is to let it go. Let it go. Don't sit there and wait for an answer. Doing that only puts your focus on the past. If the answer is important to you, your subconscious mind will throw it up. Your unconscious will give it to you. Most of the time, you don't need to know. Your unconscious, however, will start to create new neural pathways, so the next time something like this comes up, you'll find yourself handling a little bit differently. Let it go for this reason as well, like I said before. The harder you try to remember something, the further it seems to go. As soon as you decide, it'll come to me, then you get the answer. Think back to situations where you've been in conversations with people, you tried to remember something, and as soon as you decided, it'll come to me, boom, up comes the answer. Your unconscious mind needs to do this without being limited and inhibited by your conscious mind slowing it down. So let it go. You do not need the answer. The T part of POET, very simply, is to say thank you. Thank yourself for catching it. Initially, this was gratitude. It was pause, observe, examine, engage, gratitude. But POEG made no sense to me. POET, I thought, was a lot easier to remember. So the T is just gratitude. The T is to say, geez, I'm glad I caught it. I'm glad I caught this moment. I'm glad I was aware of that. And then move on. Be grateful that you caught it. So it's, how do I do this? What can I learn from this so I can do it better next time? Glad I caught it. And if you take a look at the graph here, using the POET system, you're not going to bounce all the way back up to the mood that you were in before, but you're not going to slide all the way down into the pits. You're going to be back up to a happier mood, a more stable mood more quickly because you've taken a positive action here. The more you use this, the faster you'll interrupt that slide. When you first start doing it, you might have to get all the way down into the pits, I don't know, before you realize, oh yeah, I have a tool that I can use now. The faster you can get it, the easier it's going to be, because the deeper you go into the pits here, the more chemistry we're dealing with. So if you go back to that thoughts, image, and emotion slide that I had earlier, the window of opportunity, the faster you can grab these thoughts and say, how do I do this? What can I learn from it? The faster you can do that, the more easily your unconscious mind will give you the solutions and move you forward. By the way, if this process is taking you more than about 30 seconds, you're overthinking it, and you're slowing the process down with your conscious mind. Your unconscious mind works very, very quickly with this. So don't overanalyze. Just go pause, observe, examine, let it go, and thank. All right, now here's how you make your POET strong. Rather than waiting for the negative events to take place, exercise this muscle on positive events. You're going through your day and you get a little pop. You're going through your day and something happens that helps you to feel good. It could be you get a hug from a dog, you get a smile from a stranger, it's a beautiful day, you have a perfect cup of coffee, whatever it might be. You know what I'm talking about. You're going through your day, you're at about a 7.6. Something happens, you feel yourself bump to a 7.8. It doesn't have to be monumental, just something positive. Run the same pattern. When you notice yourself feeling good, you go, how do I do this? This time is the good feeling. How do I do this? What can I get from this so I can see more of these events more often? What can I get from this so I can catch more things just like that? Man, I'm glad I caught it. And what you're doing is you're training your brain on the pattern of pause, observe, examine, engage, and thank. By training your brain on the pattern on the positive events, when you need it for something that goes south, it'll be there for you. That's how you make it strong. Now, there's one other really cool application to POET, and that's when somebody else is acting up. And you don't even have to do the whole thing. But have you ever noticed if somebody's acting up or acting out, it's very easy to get sucked into that black hole with them. You know, the drama queens that suck your energy and they just pull you right in with them. Okay, so rather than questioning, what is he thinking? What is she doing? Why is she doing that? Why is he saying that? So rather than doing all that stuff and trying to analyze, because I got a hint for you, you'll never figure that out. Rather than doing that, try detached curiosity and just sit back and in your own head go, I wonder how she does that. Not why, how. It's a really curious exercise, and I'm just going to let you ponder that because this is an experiential thing. It's amazing what happens to your perception of the other person abreacting when you sit back and you go, I wonder how he does that. All of a sudden, judgment is gone, all the personal stuff is out of there, and you're simply observing as a detached and curious observer. It's a fascinating little thing. Really helps to protect your emotions. So here we go. So far we have 5 tools. We have deep abdominal breathing, healthy posture, soft focus or peripheral vision, Zoom, and POET. They're all good for and powerful for mitigating stress, but the big question here is what's causing your stress? 2 big causes like we started out with, relationships, whether they're personal or business, or career, whether you're working at home or you're working in a company. These are the 2 major areas where the stressors seem to live. And what happens when we start feeling these stressors, whether it's in relationships or work or whatever it might be, you get these questions, these seeds of doubt that start going through your mind. Like, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, it shouldn't be this hard, I can't do anything right. How come John and Charlie and Mary can get this job done so easily and I'm struggling with it? You know, I must be stupid. And those little seeds start to take root. And if it starts at work, then you bring that stuff home. Okay? And that stirs up more emotions like anger and sadness and shame. And by the way, I guess I should comment. I don't know how appropriate. It's certainly not politically correct, but I just think this little cartoon in the bottom right-hand corner is funny. So I put it in there. Now you have some insight into my mind. All right. But you get into this cycle, right? You get into the cycle of, the stress at work, bring the stress home. It escalates at home because we always yell at the people we love the most, and you take it back to work and you're in the cycle now. And stress is exploding. Okay. So what are we talking about here? What we're talking about is prescription without diagnosis is malpractice, one of my favorite expressions, because people have a tendency now at this point to start to treat the symptoms of stress. They go to see an NLP guy like me or hypnotherapist, or they start to over-medicate or self-medicate. They start drinking. They start doing all kinds of crazy things to deal with the stress, but they're dealing with the symptom, not the root cause. So what would happen if we could objectively identify the potential causes of stress in your life, okay? The causes, the root cause. Maybe it's you and how you view your job. Maybe it's you and your partner. Maybe there's something going on there where she doesn't see things or he doesn't see things the way I do. Why can't they just think the way I do? Things would be so much easier. Maybe it's you and, by the way, partner could be at business too. Coworker, executive and assistant, partner in business, whatever it might be. You and any other person. You and your career. Maybe you're at this point where you're starting to question the career and the business that you're in. Are you and how you actually go about selling if you're in sales? Because I've dealt with a lot of salespeople in my career in NLP, and a lot of times the stress is just because they're working against who they are naturally. So the question is, wouldn't you want to know what these stressors are? And more importantly, wouldn't you want to learn what to do about them? So just imagine for a moment, let me throw a theory out for you, that nothing's broken. You don't need to be fixed. You have the talent, you have the smarts, everything to succeed. Maybe you've just been working against your natural grain for so long that your perception of reality has shifted. Now, here's where Colby comes into the system. There's more to you than intellect and personality. I discovered Colby in 2005. I recertified with him just in January of 2015 because I'm so impressed with his company. And the question is, when given the freedom to be yourself, how do you naturally solve problems and take action? When you work against your instincts, that creates stress. And people treat the stress without addressing the root cause, okay, which is only putting a Band-Aid on the problem. 3 parts of the mind is what Colby built its model on. You know 2 of them, the thinking mind and the feeling mind. The conative mind is your doing mind, your drive, necessity, innate force, instinct. Okay? And all 3 of these are working. They're all in play all of the time. Most people have never heard of the conative mind or conation, but it's the doing mind. It's the energy behind all these other. It's your natural, innate force of how you solve problems when given the freedom to be yourself. The other thing that impressed me about Colby, aside from the fact that it's the only company I found that talks about your gut like it's something real, is that they're predictable and reliable. And I'll leave this slide up for you so you can take a look at it. I don't want to read the whole thing. But what this basically says is that with all the statistical analyses that they've done, over 40 years of data collections, we know that the Colby Index, for the most part, over 90% accuracy, it does not change. It's like your eye color. If you take it when you're 20 and you take the index again when you're 40, there's a 90% chance that nothing is going to change and 96% chance that you won't change in any zone. Okay, I don't want to get into all the details of this. The bottom line is it's predictable and it's reliable on test and retest. And that to me was very, very important. So let me tell you a quick story. Years ago, I was making dinner and Carrie was doing the bills. And I put the dinner down and she continued to do the bills. And I started getting mad. And I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, the first thought in my head was, I got to fix this in her. And the second thought in my head was, hey, George, you're the master practitioner in NLP. I got to fix this in me. Either way, there was the presumption that somebody was broken. There was the assumption here that something was wrong with one, or if not both of us. And that anger that I was feeling, it was justified because my dinner was getting cold, but I had to fix it. All right? You with me? Now, somewhere shortly after, thank goodness, I discovered Colby. I went and got certified with him because it blew my mind how accurate it was. I had her take the index, and there's 2 points, 2 of the action modes where we have a little bit of conflict. But when we understood what that meant, that it's not better or worse or good or bad or right or wrong, and we accepted the fact that it's not going to change, putting the strategies together to deal with the gap, that's the easy part. So the same situation took place a little bit later. I cooked dinner, she's doing the bills. She continued to do the bills, only this time I'm looking at her in total fascination because she had to find a place that she could reach that would bring completeness to the task. See, me, I could sign George on a check, push it aside, bring the check back later, sign Gillis, it wouldn't even faze me. Carrie has to go all the way through, and it's a need for completion. It's not something that she wants to do. She has the intellectual capacity to stop it, but it's a need for completion. Understanding and accepting that that's like her eye color, then it makes it easy. So she finished the bill, she pushes the computer away, she pulls the plate forward, and she says, now I can eat. So what we're talking about here is identifying root cause. We didn't need counseling, we didn't need interventions, we didn't need any of that. We just had to understand she's wired one way, I'm wired another way. How can we put strategies together so that we can both play to our strengths? Because you know what? When you know you, everything else is everything else. Aristotle said knowing yourself is the beginning of wisdom. And the process starts here with knowing what can change and what shouldn't change. And if you don't know how you do things best and know it in a way that you can quantify it, how do you know what proper actions to take? So if you really want to be de-stressed, and if you're sincere about changing the way you handle stress and you want to address the potential root causes in your life, here's what we can do. So here's what we know so far. You've chosen to watch this. We know that stress is a concern. We've invested some time together, coming up on an hour, and there's something here for you. And we also know that less stress equals better health, better relationships, higher productivity, peace of mind. This is right out of the school of duh. Everybody knows that. So if this is of interest to you and you think there might be something here that you'd like to explore further, here's my invitation. Let's have an honest, no-cost conversation. We can do it face-to-face. If you're in the Valley, we can do it by phone. We can do it by Skype. Let's take 30 to 45 minutes and just talk. Let's see if this is right for you and if you're right for me to work with. And if it feels right for both of us, here's what we can do. We'll figure out what assessment or assessments would be best for you to take. You take them online, you do them at home. Then you get up to 2 hours with me one-on-one to answer any of the questions about any of the strategies in this webinar. We'll review your results with the Colby indexes and we'll plan the strategies to play to your strengths. And then we'll schedule a follow-up and you'll get up to 2 hours follow-up at no additional charge. That by itself is a value of over $240. You'll also get these two bonuses. You'll get the full Poet book, which is all the thinking and the logic and the science behind it, along with much more detailed application of how to do it, along with a report that I wrote on peripheral vision, soft eyes, still mind, laser focus. The regular price for this package is about $650. It's actually a little bit higher. The special that I'm offering is only $297. You're saving over $350 by moving ahead with this today. Very, very small investment for that kind of peace of mind. Now, I've done this enough times to know that if you're not satisfied with the results, you got a 100% money back guarantee. By the way, in 12 years of doing this, I've never given back a dime because we didn't have to. If you're right for me, I'm right for you. And if you have a desire to make a change, we'll get it done. It's really just that simple. But this guarantee helps to alleviate, I guess, a little bit of apprehension. So here's the thing. No high pressure sales pitch. If you think this is something you'd like to talk with me about, let's talk. Send me an email to george@georgeskillis.com. All you got to do is put the subject line yes, and I'll know what it means, and include the best number and time to call you. I'll call you within 24 hours or, Monday if it's over the weekend or something. All right? And again, no obligation, no pressure. Let's just have a conversation and explore. And if there is something going on with you that I can't help you with, I'll see if I can connect you with a referral of somebody who can help. Fair enough? So don't hesitate. By the way, there's limited room on this. It's one-on-one work. It's intense on my end. I only have limited capacity. I don't want to be overwhelmed because I want people to be able to get their results very, very quickly. If you feel there's something here, give me a holler. Let's talk. Take the next step. And let me thank you for your attention and interest. Once again, simply send an email that says yes to george@georgeskillis.com. We'll take it from there.